Hello and welcome back to another KCC video. I'm Rob and I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Today we're gonna jump into some malicious compliance. Before we start that though, in Friday's video I asked you to put your best clean joke in the comments section down below, and if we hit 1,000 likes on that, we'd give away a t-shirt. Well, we definitely hit that 1,000 like goal, so let's give away a t-shirt. Here we go. And the winner is Kevin Pine. Kevin says, a horse walks into a bar. The barkeep looked at the horse and said, "What's with the long face?" Lame. Kevin, pay attention at the end of the video for your instructions on how to claim your t-shirt. Let's get back to the malicious compliance. Our first story today comes to us from Zilks Daguerro. Throw more fuel on the fire? Got it. Let's jump right in. When I was younger, my cousins and I would always go and hang out at each other's places. All of our parents were in very rural areas. To give you an idea of how rural, our nearest neighbor was over a mile away. For my cousin, this was elevated to about 10 miles. We did what any other teenage boys would do in the woods, whatever we wanted to. For this story, I was at my cousin's place and we were having a bonfire. It was a little damp as it had just rained, but his dad was fairly stubborn and had decided that he was going to burn some brush regardless of how long it was going to take him, and that we, my cousin and I, were just there to help him. Neither of us wanted to be out there, but my uncle insisted that we couldn't do anything else until all the brush was burned, and we helped him put away all his equipment, chainsaw, log splitter, etc. He tried to start the fire and after about 30 minutes finally got it to start. We tended the fire and got it to where it wasn't going to die before he decided to leave us in charge before going to go get more brush. To keep the fire manageable, he had the foresight to separate all the brush in that area into multiple separate piles no bigger than about 2 feet high and about 3 feet wide. As he didn't want the fire to die, he told us that if it started to burn down, to add more fuel to the fire to keep it going. As he walked away, my cousin eyed the 10-gallon red plastic canister full of gasoline before returning a wicked little grin at me. I just smiled back because naive little me had no clue what he was thinking. Malicious compliance time. After a little while, the fire had burned down a little to where we could add more branches, but instead, my cousin grabbed the whole canister of gas and chucked it, more like dropped it, into the middle of the fire. I stared wide-eyed as my cousin came back and said, "We should back up." "What are you?" He said to add more fuel, so I did. I looked at the canister, still sealed, and watched as the flames danced as they ignited the residual gasoline around the pour spout. Part of me thought I should put that out, but another part of me thought this is going to be awesome. As I tried to figure out what to do, I heard the screen door to the house slam shut and realized my cousin had left me. I thought, oh crap, if my uncle comes back, he's gonna blame me for this. I didn't have to think about it for long. I heard the screen door slam again, and my cousin emerged from the house with a .22 rifle. He walked up next to me, aimed at the canister and said, "This is going to be amazing," before squeezing the trigger. The bullet flew and pierced the canister on the highest part of it to allow the fumes to escape. For those who have never seen a fireball that comes from an exploding canister of gasoline, it is absolutely glorious for those who are standing back far enough, which we were not. I was only able to watch for a very minimal amount of time before the heat and force of the blast caused me to step back and trip over the chainsaw and land smack on my back in a pile of brush. My cousin ended up tripping and rolling down the hill about 30 feet before ending up in a lake at the bottom. It was hard to tell how high the fireball made it, but it was at least 100 feet, because no sooner did my cousin drag his soaking wet butt with the rifle back up to the top of the hill than his dad, my uncle, flew down the little trail on the quad screaming at us, "What the hell was that?" I threw on more fuel like you told me to, pointing to the exploded and still on fire shrapnel that used to be the gasoline canister. "I didn't tell you to use gasoline. You said fuel, I used fuel. Get the heck out of here, both of you." So we went inside, my cousin changed, I pulled prickles out of my clothes, and we started playing video games. Apparently, my uncle had called my grandparents to come get me though, because no longer than an hour had passed after we blew up the fire, then they showed up to take me home. on the way home, my grandpa asked me how it was. I said cool, and he told me in no uncertain terms that I was never to do that at his place. Fallout, I was never allowed back over to their house ever again. OP, I have to say, you're extremely lucky in this case that you didn't get burned, but I'm sure you know that now. I love how Grandpa was so cool with the situation though, and just said, yeah, don't do that at my place. Great, Grandpa. Love it. Do me a quick favor, have a look down below the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our second story today comes to us from Weekstorm242. Loaded first, as you wish. Let's jump right in. I've been working with logistics for about 17 years now and gained a bunch of experience. My main occupation has been in port loading and discharging ro-ro vessels. Most of those have a ramp in the aft which all loading and discharging goes through, unlike passenger ferries where you can open a hatch in the fourth since it's easier to drive on and then drive off. Some 12 to 13 years ago, a VIP customer for a truck manufacturer called our office. I got the call and informed me he had gotten the number from the agency because he had certain instructions for the loading of a special truck. Okay, so I hear him out. Turns out this truck is going on exhibition somewhere on the continent and is a bit late from the factory. To save some time, he had hired some photographer that would take some photos of the truck when it rolled off the vessel in the receiving port. He was very insistent that we load it first, so it would come off first. Now, in the business, we have a term for express cargo that is LOFO, last on, first off, which means we load the unit last on deck and so that it will be first off. And this I explained to him, but he insisted we loaded first, probably thinking we operated passenger ferries, while in fact we operated cargo vessels. So I once again tried to explain, but he would not listen. I finally just gave in and said, okay, I'll load it first. Thinking I will load it last to make sure it comes off first thing. We hang up, so I thought that was it. Now I can plan the rest of the operation and mind my own business. Moments later, agency called and told me the customer had called them being very concerned his unit won't be loaded first. Now, I know the people on the agency very well since we talk several times on a daily basis and they know me also. And they also know how the vessels are designed and in which order operations go. So they also tried to explain, but the customer still insisted. Now, I also got some additional information about the photographer in the receiving port. He was hired by the hour, so it was important he does not need to wait in vain. So we agree that we load the truck according to LOFO principle for the sake of the customer. He does not need to know. Time passes, vessel arrives, and we start operation. The truck also enters the port. It looked kind of cool, kitted with everything extra you could think of. Also, the customer calls and asks why we have not loaded the truck yet. See, there is a GPS unit in it which will let the customer know of any movements. So I explain we are still discharging and can't load it yet. But the vessel arrived an hour ago. I see no point in trying to explain since he's all riled up, so I just tell him we're going to start loading soon. He hangs up. Moments later, the agency calls again. Obviously, he has been bugging them and they just want to let off some steam. So we laugh a bit about it and then we decide to move the truck onto the vessel so that his darn GPS will make a ping. Right after we hung up, the customer calls again and demanded we load the truck now. Now! Okay, we will load it now, I say, and I hang up, somewhat annoyed by now. I'm used to this behavior. In logistics, it seems that the one making the most noise gets their way. I never take it personally, and I really don't care. I always try to make the best solution for everyone. Anyhow, now the manager for the agency calls me and wants to know why the customer is so riled up. So I explain to him, and he's like okay with the explanation. He knows me and knows that what I'm saying is correct, but asks me to hurry up with the loading. So I radio one of the stevedores to put the truck somewhere on the main deck where it won't be in the way. We will move it later so that it will be positioned as one of the first units off. Customer calls a few minutes later since the GPS probably reported movement and goes something like this. Now this was not so hard, was it? I should not have to call managers to get crap done around here, should I? I reply with a dry, "You're welcome," and hang up. Now I'm actually annoyed for real. Sometime later, the stevedores let me know they've emptied the lower hold, the part that takes the longest to discharge but is quickest to load. So I tell them to put the truck in the deepest corner of the lower hold. Customers should be satisfied with it being loaded first, as per request. So we fill the rest of the vessel, I send a report to my manager and the agency what happened, and go home. 36 hours later, the vessel arrives in the receiving port. Photographer is in place, also the customer, I got told later on. I can only imagine how boring the wait must have been. A week later, the agency received a written complaint from the customer that he had to pay the photographer for the waiting, but it felt kind of low effort. Not a word on being loaded first. I think the customer finally understood and learned his lesson. Years later, I actually met the customer in person, and he turned out to be a really nice person. We've had many dealings with each other since then. I even asked if he remembered the truck incident. He did. It was his first big assignment, and he was so stressed out about it. Go figure. Anyway, we have a good relationship between us, agency, port, and customer now. See, what the customer didn't understand in this case was that they were talking to somebody who does this for a living, has probably done this for a very long time, and knows exactly what they're doing, a lot more than the customer does anyway. In that case, just leave it to the professional because you're just gonna bugger things up. Our next story today comes to us from Dark909911. Just a little height difference? Let's jump right in. The story. I can remember this event clearly. The family laughed about this for years. The year was 1985. Dad just brought home a brand new car, a 1985 Caprice Classic. Mom and Dad picked it out together weeks ago, and he'd just picked it up from the dealership. We went for a drive so they could show off the new car to us kids and some close friends who were excited for my parents. Dad had an old half-ton he drove to work and back, so the car was left with Mom most days. Some days she drove it, but others she didn't need to go anywhere, so it sat in the driveway. Now here I will mention there is a huge height difference between Mom and Dad. Dad was roughly 198 centimeters, 6'5", and Mom was roughly 157 centimeters, 5'2". Needless to say, the driver's seat needed to be moved for each of them. Dad got petty one day and pulled one of his little pranks on Mom. He took the car to work one day, which was not unusual if he didn't feel like driving his truck. While he had it at work, he welded the driver's seat where he feels comfortable and never said a thing to Mom. Probably 2 or 3 days later, Mom had to go to a doctor appointment or something like it. When she got into the car, she tried adjusting the seat, but it never budged. She came in the house and asked me to go look to see if I can figure out what was wrong. As soon as I looked at the track where the seat should slide, I see the weld. I pointed it out to Mom. When Mom got mad, she always looked like she just ate 30 lemons and she gets quiet. When she went quiet, when I was a kid, I knew it was about to go down. She went into her bedroom and grabbed pillows to put behind her so she could reach the pedals. By the time she got to the appointment, she had the most sour look on her face. We left the appointment and I thought we would be heading home, but we started in a different direction. I didn't dare ask where. I just sat back for the ride and shut my mouth. After a few kilometers, I realized we were heading to Uncle Ernie's place. This is where we brought Dad's work truck to get fixed and Mom's uncle. Mom got out of the car and showed Uncle Ernie where Dad welded the seat all the way back. He kind of giggled and asked what she wanted him to do about it. Mom told him to cut off the gas and brake pedals and weld something on them so her feet can reach the pedals with the seat all the way back. After some time, measurements and welding, it was done and we went home. It wasn't until the next night when Dad was heading to the Legion, like he did most nights. Within a minute, he came bursting through the door ripping about the pedals. Mom just looked at him with a look of amusement, which made him angrier. He asked her where she got the idea to mess around with the brand new car. Again, with the same look as before, she answered, "If you didn't weld the seat to your position, but I drive the car more and can't reach the pedals, what am I supposed to do? Now if you want to take your truck tonight, you can take the car tomorrow and remove the welding from the seat first so it moves right, then you can take the extensions off the pedals." This is exactly what he did too. Do you think he would learn his lesson? Not my dad. He always said, "I am not stubborn, and I will fight to the death to prove it." Well, I'm not sure if this one fits into malicious compliance or petty revenge, but in the end, who does that to a brand new car? If somebody cut the pedals off of my brand new car, I would be livid. Our last story today comes to us from Music Trivia Nut. Be careful what you demand. Let's jump right in. My oldest daughter met her now husband shortly after they both graduated high school through her sister's, daughter number 2's, boyfriend at that time. Both are pretty shy, but they hit it off immediately. Lots of common interests and just plain old chemistry. This would have been around 2013 or so. A couple of years later, both were going to community college and the classes were closer to our house, so we talked to son-in-law and asked him if he would be interested in sharing rides, to which the answer was yes, because that would save him and his parents lots of money, time, and effort. But he was having issues trying to figure out logistics, getting to our house on time, given his parents' work schedules, etc. We eventually asked him if he just wanted to move in with us to make life easier, daughter's idea. His parents were not big on the idea at all, pretty religious and not big on premarital anything, but we assured them that he would not be sharing a room with her. Fast forward a few months and they somehow figure out that they were not in fact in separate bedrooms, but rather sharing a bed, must have come to pick him up for a visit or something and saw the arrangements. Now, we did not just tell them one thing and turn around and do something else. The relationship developed and eventually it was just time and space saving to have them share a room. Plus, our family is not religious and has no problem with what two people in love do as long as they do things correctly, which they did. His parents were not happy at all, and they let him know it too, not us, him. His father, very active in their church as an elder or so, basically told him that he didn't appreciate his son disrespecting another man, me, by sleeping with his daughter before marriage in his house. They insisted that he move back in with them, no matter how inconvenient it might be to everyone with regard to classes. He asked them if he could finish out the week and go back home with them on the weekend. They reluctantly agreed, since that actually made sense for everyone's schedule, reason for once. By the end of the week, they had eloped, and his parents were even more unhappy at that point, but there was pretty much nothing they could do. Son-in-law and daughter had addressed their issue. To top things off, yes, people make mistakes in life, but the main complainant was his dad. As I said, he was very active in the church, but we didn't find out until later that he actually has a son from an affair years earlier, so yeah. So something really interesting with this one, if you look at the comments for this story on Reddit, the daughter number 2 is actually in the comments, the son-in-law is in the comments, and they're saying that they're all really open about everything, they know each other's Reddit accounts. That's weird. Alright, some quick information for Kevin, the t-shirt winner. You need to go to the About page on the KCC channel, check out my email address, and send me an email showing that you're logged into that particular YouTube account. Then we'll work out the details for getting you your t-shirt. Check out all 4 OPs linked in the description down below. Thank you for watching, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.